Coming up.
There's also this natural ability to compare people, right? So when I started the business, the first thing that I experienced and I continue to is, oh, are you just like X? Or how are you different than Y organization? So our natural abilities, like we just put people against each other. And so that insecurity that we all have, I think that everyone has that, is derived out of that others are putting us against each other. And what I've tried to do is really focus on, yes, compete, be the best you can be. We're out there to win business and but there's a big pie and we can all have a piece of it.
Well, there you are. So good to see you, Hidden Nation. You got Josh Carey here. It's your Hidden Entrepreneur. Hidden Nation, whether you are currently in your position in the power middle, as our guest today calls it, or higher up in the C-suite with a seat at the table, this is the discussion for you. If you want greater impact, greater influence, and greater and deeper partnerships and business relationships, we're going to dig right into this. And if you know, you know, because my guest today is Cate Luzio. She is, of course, the founder and CEO of Luminary. And we're going to dig deep. Let's get right into it, Cate. So good to have you on the program.
So excited to be here. I love the energy.
Well, thank you. Thanks for noticing. I want to begin with collaboration. This is very significant to me personally. I've always loved the idea of collaboration, but I want to hear from you the idea of, so we have people like entrepreneurs and all the forms that collaboration comes in because, you know, entrepreneurs, they're often trying to navigate in an isolated arena. And then even at the higher up corporate level, dealing with company dynamics, there might be some challenges there. The question is, what do you feel is most misunderstood about collaboration in a business sense?
So I think the number one thing is when you hear the word collaboration, people think, oh my God, it's going to take a lot of time, right? And it does take time, but that also, if I'm collaborating, that doesn't mean I'm ambitious or competitive. And for anybody that knows me, they know that I am ambitious, driven, and competitive. But I learned at a very young age, particularly in team sports, that my father sort of put my brothers and I in, is that to be a part of a team, you have to collaborate. It is, unless you're in an individual sport, which I didn't play any individual sports. I learned that in order to be a good leader, an effective leader, to build relationships, to navigate complex relationships and ultimately organizations, et cetera, you've got to find a way to collaborate. And for all the change we want in our companies, in our organizations, in our lives, in the world, we only actually get there by collaborating versus solely competing.
What is the difference between connecting and building a relationship based on collaboration?
So I think one of my people tell me one of my superpowers is connecting. So I love to sort of draw the lines and say, okay, I've met somebody, here's who I want to connect them with. That doesn't ultimately mean I'm in there and collaborating with them. But the reason I'm connecting people so much, and it's so much part of my former life as a banker and now as an entrepreneur, is there I see opportunities immediately for potential to collaborate, whether that's bringing two businesses together, whether that's here's a senior leader and a younger person that there's could be some mentorship or some sponsorship. By the way, that's also an opportunity to collaborate. There's so much power in connecting, but then taking that one step further. And people connect on LinkedIn, people connect on all the different social media platforms. When I was growing up, and certainly in the better part of my first part of my career, there was no social platforms. You had to actually go out and establish relationships that led to not only connection, but ultimately to opportunities to collaborate and work together, whether that was on your team, in your company, more broadly, just in your life, and where those opportunities to collaborate could take you to the next level. And then remembering that it's a two-way street, always, right? If you are going into some type of connection or collaboration thinking, this is just about me, it will never work.
Do you find that there's a common theme with, let's say, an underlying block in a person that they have to overcome in order to really make this work? What do you see over and over again that digging deep, it really comes down to?
I think there's a lot of insecurity, right? I think there is an insecurity around within corporate America. I'll just use this since I spent, 20 something years in corporate America. There's this, there's only one seat for me at the table, right? Or for that voice. And as a woman, that particularly in finance, that for a long time, there were only very limited seats. I think that's changing and we're progressing. But I think there is an insecurity and this sort of scarcity mindset, right? Around it's got to be about me and this is mine. Personally, yes, the only person that cares about your career is you, right? And whatever that is, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're, in higher ed, if you're nonprofit, corporate, et cetera. But that insecurity, I think, holds us back in being more open. What I've seen from incredible leaders that I look up to is this ability to sort of not make things about them, that it's about the team, that it's about the broader good of the organization. It's we all win together, but guess what? We all lose together too. And I think that also comes from, for me, that mentality of growing up in sports and team sports, and then applying that to my life sort of every day and how I lead and manage my teams.
I'm glad you brought up insecurity as the big focus there, because what I've noticed is the people I looked up to, you always assume that they have it all figured out. And then when I start having conversations with them, they'll say straight out, I felt like a fraud. I still
Yeah.
feel like that. I have imposter syndrome. I don't know if I can do it. You hear those conversations?
All day long. I think social media has probably amplified that because there is this, I can now look at everybody and what they're doing. I can look at Josh. I see he's got a very successful podcast and he's got this many listeners and viewers. And if I have a podcast that's just starting, or maybe it's not there yet, I then have this insecurity, right? Or I need to be better than Josh versus maybe there's an opportunity to learn from Josh. Maybe there's an opportunity to collaborate with Josh. So I think that social media has really amplified that. I have to turn off certain things in particular for me because I think there's also this, and I don't know if it's just society. There's also this natural ability to compare people,
Mm.
right? So when I started the business, the first thing that I experienced and I continue to is, oh, are you just like X? Or how are you different than Y organization? So our natural abilities, like we just put people against each other. And so that insecurity that we all have, I think that everyone has that, is derived out of that. Others are putting us against each other. And what I've tried to do, certainly in what we're doing with Luminary is, bless you, is really focus on, yes, compete, be the best you can be. We're out there to win business and but there's a big pie and we can all have a piece of it.
The idea of putting yourself out there, collaborating, to some might feel scary, right? Oh, I'm not extroverted like that, or I'm not
Uh-huh.
naturally someone who can work the room. What do you say to that person?
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with if you're extroverted or introverted. I think it has everything to do with, do you have the willingness to do it? I know a lot of introverts, both in, again, my former life as a banker and certainly now as an entrepreneur. And don't see them as any less successful, any less of collaborators. Some people choose to how they reach out and how they interact is different than perhaps for me, which is I am an extrovert. But that doesn't mean that they are any less effective. And I think it's understanding your style, your tone, how you communicate, and knowing also that not everybody receives the information the way I do. I tell this story all the time. When I was in finance, somebody that was giving me very significant feedback told me that I was an all caps kind of person. And And that was said in a not a positive way. It was like, Cate, everything that you asked for is like, it's got to be done yesterday. It's, it's like every email you send is like so urgent. And I really took that feedback to heart. I'm still an all caps person. I have a lot of energy, 20 hours a day, but I can adjust my tone, I can adjust my style, I can adjust the way I communicate depending on who's around the table. Just because I'm an extrovert doesn't mean everybody that's sitting around my table is going to be that. And I need to really spend time knowing the people around me. That's my team, that's customers, right? Our members, and our partners around what works for them. And especially if you think about collaboration, this is not cookie cutter. It's you've got to spend time. That's why I said in the beginning, collaboration takes time. Competition is easy, right? It's easy to compete with anybody in the room. But if you really want to figure out the best way to work together or methods of working, you've got to put the time in figuring out ways to collaborate.
When you were told your all caps, you bring up a good point that it comes down to mindset, right? Because you could have taken that very to heart. You could have been insulted. Your ego could have been bruised, and that could have
It
set
was, it
you.
was.
Oh, it was. However,
Yeah,
you didn't let it divert
define me. Yeah.
or right or take you down a path that you didn't recover from. Was that a deliberate choice?
Oh, absolutely. I think in that moment, and I'll never forget it. I mean, it's so fresh in my mind, and it was a very long time ago. It was like 2009, and the minute it came out of his mouth, I was sort of like, "How dare?" In my head, I'm going, "How dare he?" But then he used examples to back it up, and I think when you provide context in situations like this, it's so helpful. Rather than just saying I'm all caps kind of person and I don't like that, he then, and I took that offense to that and it was like, oh, a dagger. But then he continued and said, let me give you some examples where this didn't work for me or for my team, and how can we work together and find a better way forward. Once he did that, it allowed me to reflect on those examples and say, okay, I did not put myself in that person's shoes, right? I didn't recognize what they might also have on their plate. We all have a lot, we're busy. But that was a critical moment for me in also how was I investing in relationships, further connecting and building and nurturing relationships, especially those that were very important in my career. And I think it was a game changer for me. Again, I'm still an all caps person, and sometimes that gets the better of me. But I do feel like that's helped me become much better leader and manager.
You're on the front lines, Luminary, 15,000 plus members strong, not even counting the corporate partners you have. So you must see it all and have to absorb it all. What is a big challenge right now you see founders and corporate leaders facing that we need to be prepared for?
Well, I think what's happening in the world, there's so much geopolitically. We have a new administration. We're a month into 2025. I think founders continue to have big issues like access to capital, access to mentorship, and access to being able to scale their business. And that's, the country was founded on entrepreneurship, right? When you go back to the founding fathers, one of those slogans was found something, go find something to build. So we've got to get back to what drives entrepreneurship in America, small business owners being able to get loans from banks, et cetera, et cetera. I think that will continue. And if you're raising money, it gets even harder, given where we're at economically. I think some of that access is the same issue as you look at those that are navigating the more traditional workforce, right? We use the term power middle. That's sort of that middle of your career, mid-career professionals, but also to senior professionals is access, right? Access to sponsorship, access to those mentors that are going to help me and advise me and help me manage my career, access to opportunities, be access to raises and compensation. That continues to be an issue. We had a summit last week called Leading with Impact, and that's what came out of it. But at the end of the day, what everybody says they want is real connectivity, and they want a community around them that they can tap into, but that they can also support and give back to. And I think that makes me feel very hopeful for what we're building and what many companies are building and how they support their employees.
It's quite extraordinary that this organization was founded in 2018. I know that you said you even lost a year or so because of the pandemic and whatnot, but still on paper, so new, yet so far with, I'm sure you have so much more planned to go. What is the what is the main problem you solve for and how?
So if I go back to why I left my finance career and started this, was I really wanted to bring people together with relevant content and programming, kind of with the arms that are wrapping around that is the community, right? So think about, and again, I use sort of the old days, right? You had community centers, you had the Rotary Club, you have synagogues and mosques and churches that really help to bring community together. But there's always content, there's always programming for that community. And so Luminary sort of was derived out of that. And then we tend to silo so many groups, right? You're a banker, you're an entrepreneur, you're a teacher. That's great. We can all kind of have groups that are very focused on those particular industries or sectors. How do we also take it where we can bring people together? They can learn from each other. They can propel each other forward, and they can uplift one another. That's what we're doing every day. And the way we do that, yes, it's community, but it's also with access to information, content, events, programs that people can tap into regardless of what their journey is, professionally and personally. And that was the goal 6 years ago when we launched, and that's the goal today.
One of your mottos is that you want people to feel supported. And I know that even that word supported extends in a variety of ways. Was this something that was evident in you even as a child growing up, that you were interested in this all coming together, support each other?
Yeah, I do think it has so much to do with sports, right? I was always part of a team. And again, my father, who's amazing, would always say, like, you got to take the wins, great, but you also got to be there for the losses, right? And you can't sort of finger point. And I think that being part of teams helped me be much more open to how do you, again, collaborate with others? How do you go for a common goal? So this idea of feeling supported, I knew that on a team, I always wanted to make sure that I felt supported and my teammates felt supported. Same when I got into corporate America, right? And I had a tremendous opportunity to have incredible mentors in my banking career, the majority of them being men. And I felt supported. I felt guided. I felt like I could always ask for feedback, both the positive as well as the constructive. And I think that's such an powerful thing to have in your life. And so whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in transition, you're figuring it out, you're a podcast host, we all need to feel supportive, and we need to be able to tap into those relationships and those networks that give us that support, but ultimately that we can also give back to. And I think it's that circular kind of motion where I can take and I can give. And that's the community that we've created at Luminary.
What can we give the listener, no matter where they are, the power middle, which I love, or higher up with a seat at the table? What kind of self assessment should they be doing at this point?
So I love, and sometimes people think this is pretty corny. So if you've ever done, and if you've ever worked in a company where you've done a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, most people do that for a product launch or a project. Do it for yourself. So
Go on.
take that four boxes: your strengths, your weaknesses. We like to say opportunities for development, and then opportunities and threats, and do that for yourself. You're whatever, wherever you're at in your career, you're a year in, you've been at your company for 20 years, you're an entrepreneur, complete it. It sounds, again, corny, but it's very tactical. And always start with your weaknesses and threats first. Because if you start with all the goods and the positives, you will have blinders on and you won't get to really what can you work on and what do you need to be aware of as you're navigating, again, that personal or professional path or both.
I want to dig into that for a minute.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I want to dig into that for a minute. First of all, I love doing it for ourselves. Am I thinking that this might be a little difficult for people who almost have a hard time with self-analysis, right? Because you have to take an honest look. Is that the whole purpose of this?
Absolutely. It's you're taking an honest look of what potentially is holding you back. And by the way, this is you can start to think about it. Let's just use a real life example, right? Go back to, am I a good communicator? Do I think of others when I'm communicating, or is it just about me? We often get, I'm a terrible delegator. I don't have confidence. I don't speak up in the room. Those could be seen as potential weaknesses. I don't have a large network. I need to put myself out there more. So I often say, don't just think about sort of the tactical, think about the quote unquote, and I'm not a big fan of the word soft skills, but soft skills, right? The easiest way to do this, to start, if you're really not great at it, is think of the word that you would love to be described as, right? Especially professional. I'm a great leader. Innovative. I'm a mentor in people. I'm a connector. If you're not there yet, how are you going to get there? The other way to do it is if I ask my boss, if I have a boss or a peer or somebody in my life, if they could use one word to describe me, what would that be? That tends to get the mental juices flowing, in my opinion. I watch it. We teach this workshop at Luminary for many of our corporate partners, and you just watch on the Zoom, the light bulb goes on because then they just are, it's like, oh, now I can talk about myself. It's almost giving this permission to talk about yourself in a different way. And if you've ever done a 360 feedback, if you've ever done a development plan, a SWOT is a great way to start if you're sort of figuring out, am I in the right place? What do I want to be doing? But also to prepare to have very strategic conversations.
And then do what with the information?
So if you are working for someone, if you're working for a business, it is, okay, what does my next 12 to 18 months look like in this company? What are my aspirations? Do people know them? Do people know who I am? And it's a great opportunity to be able to go back to your manager directly and say, okay, these are the self-identified areas of opportunity that I've found for myself. Do you agree? Great. How do I fill those gaps? Your manager, your leaders will likely have hopefully some ideas. The other is, how do I play better to my strengths? If I know these are my strengths, how am I leveraging them even more to be able to get that next position, get more money, whatever your desire is, that is what you can use this for. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is also, where are you struggling, right, to continue to build your business? Where are you excelling in building your business or your brand? And I think it's just a great eye opener that most people don't do and don't take the time to do it, but it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes an hour to do this exercise. Then it's on paper and you can start to build this roadmap of where you want to play to your strengths. What are some opportunities that you need to capitalize on? And then those areas of development that you can invest in for yourself, and also those potential threats that you just need to be aware of.
Absolutely brilliant. Leave us with this. Let's package this up into a nice bow for the listener. What is the overriding message you have for them?
We are in a great time of change, evolution. I don't even know the word. But I think at the heart of really people, and my mom will say this to me, we've got to think the best of people. And so going back to collaboration and feeling supported and offering support, we need that in our world now more than ever. So for those of you out there that are on a mission, don't stop that mission just because of something that's happening in the world. we can be much more unified than we are today. And I know for us at Luminary, our mission is to advance women and allies in the workforce, regardless of their journey. And we're not stopping. We've just scratched the surface.
Men included in your membership, I know that. weareluminary.com. Cate, consider me your next and most recent member. I am in. I can't wait to meet you in person and meet the members as well. Cate Luzio, this has been extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. It was great to be here. And shout out to Maribel Lara, who introduced me to the podcast and just loved being a part of it.
Collaboration and connection right there.
There you go.